I last upgraded my iPad 4 years ago. It's actually sitting right back there. So I thought, maybe it's time. Maybe I do need a new iPad. Well, this is the M5 iPad Pro, the newest flagship iPad. There's some really neat things about it and some things that haven't really changed since I last upgraded. So let's talk about how it is in everyday use, how it compares to other iPad options, and whether you should upgrade too. Because this upgrade has actually gotten me kind of mixed. Let's get started. In my hand is the M5 iPad Pro 13-inch Wi-Fi model. So this is the cheapest 13-inch iPad Pro model that you can get. That being said, 95% of this video will be helpful for anyone considering the 11-inch model as well, since the only major difference between the two is the screen size. The M5 iPad Pro is a spec bump across the board this year with little refinements to the core functionality of the iPad. Nothing has changed in a dramatic way. This is not a, oh my god, they did what to the iPad? Which is fine because the M5 iPad just takes everything everyone liked about the M4 iPad Pro, the lighter design and the landscape front-facing camera, and made it slightly better in most ways. Like the N1 chip, which gives it Wi-Fi 7, a newer Wi-Fi standard with faster speeds and lower latency when your iPad is connected to a Wi-Fi 7 access point. It's definitely great for future-proofing long-term as Wi-Fi 7 starts to become the norm, but currently it isn't the norm. But since people hold their iPads for several years before upgrading, you'll see the benefits to that further down the line. If you get a cellular version of the M5 iPad Pro, it comes with the C1X chip. This gives it better efficiency for data networks when compared to last year's model. This is the same mobile chip that's found in the iPhone Air, and I've had no issues with it on that particular device. The M5 iPad Pro also got 120Hz refresh rate monitor support, which is good if you use a high refresh rate monitor to play some games on a bigger display. But I'm genuinely curious, is this a use case people use their iPads for? I can't imagine the M5 alone is strong enough for people to realistically do with most games that you'd want to play on a bigger screen. But let me know if you feel differently about that. But I do think with this update that high refresh rate monitors definitely feel a lot more snappy, almost like it's coming off of your iPad's display. So it's definitely a nice quality of life update for those iPad desktop users out there. There's dozens of us. But I actually think there's two features that make a huge difference this year. First, faster charging. The iPad Pro this year can charge at up to 60 watts. I got pretty close to that number. I think at most I saw 53 watts with the iPad screen off, but I managed to get to around 58 watts while using the iPad and charging at the same time while low on battery. I was seeing their advertised rate of 0 to 50% in 30 minutes with chargers that could handle 60 watts or more. And the M5 iPad Pro even charges at that same speed through the Magic Keyboard's USB-C port. My M1 iPad Pro from 2021, in the same 30 minutes, only charged from 0 to 35%. This fixes an issue that I've had with iPads. They had chips that you could find in MacBooks, but never charged anywhere near as fast as MacBooks could, which is super inconvenient for a portable device. I mean, iPhones have been getting better and better charging speeds in recent years, and it feels like now the iPad Pro is playing catch up. I'm glad that this update not only makes charging the iPad Pro faster, but you can do it through the Magic Keyboard or directly on the device itself. It's a good update to charging. But now, I'd wish they'd take it just one little step further. Apple has rated the iPad Pro at the same battery life it has always been for maybe the last 8 years. While improved charging speeds is nice, I think it'd be great to see the iPad Pro also improve battery life, since any addition there would be much appreciated. I used the iPad Pro daily for, I would say, about 2 to 2.5 hours a day, writing, reading, answering emails, and watching streamed videos, and it survived about 3 days with this type of usage. The thing is, it feels like the iPad has had this type of battery life for a long time. It would be great if it got some type of improvement at this point, the same way that they've been adding larger and larger batteries in basically all the other Pro labeled Apple devices. The iPhone Pro, the MacBook Pro, and Apple Watch Ultra lineups all have larger batteries than their non-Pro counterparts. But yet for the iPad Pro, it has the same battery life as everything else in the iPad lineup, even the cheapest model. Overall, the new charging curve is great and the battery is good. It's just kind of been the same for a while. You may have noticed at this point that my iPad has this matte-like texture to it. This is actually a screen protector from today's sponsor, Paperlike. The Paperlike 3 screen protector gives your iPad a more natural feeling surface for your Apple Pencil. It genuinely feels like you're writing on a paper surface. This is thanks to Paperlike's nanodots technology that gives the screen protector its more matte look and that texture to give you the best writing experience while protecting your screen. Well, let's be real. Screen protectors are nice once they're actually on your device, but getting the perfect application, especially on a device device as large as an iPad can be a huge pain. Paperlike has made this process so much easier with their Butterfly application system. You scan the QR code, and they actually walk you through the process of installing your screen protector, and during this process, it actually helps you remove all of the dust too. You have no idea how many times I've tried to install a screen protector, and after installation, noticed that there was a little speck of dust causing it to bubble. It sucks. And if you do somehow manage to have an accident or have two similar iPads, a second screen protector is provided in the packaging as well. So if you're looking for a screen protector that gives you texture to write or draw on and is easy to perfectly install, check out the link in the video description below. And thanks again to Paperlike for sponsoring this portion of the video. Okay, the second big change is the M5 chip. With it comes more RAM depending on which storage size you pick and better overall performance. RAM is always great to have more of, and the M5 itself is a great little chip. It's snappy and pretty much every use case I need the iPad to do, scrolling around on sites, doom scrolling, reading manga, or just streaming. But where the M5 chip makes a noticeable impact is gaming. My game of choice on tablets have always been Genshin Impact, and in mid-game areas, because that's as far as I've gotten in the game runs great at highest settings and 60 frames per second. Playing this game for a good 30 minutes, the M5 iPad Pro does get slightly warm towards the center of the back, but nothing unusual. The rest of the tablet stays relatively cool. So yeah, it definitely handles whatever iPad game you do decide to toss on it and is great for everyday tasks as well. Okay, so these updates are nice and all, little spec bumps here and there, but what about for someone who's upgrading from a much older device, like several generations old, like my M1 iPad Pro or older? You'll see a few benefits, but even then, maybe not worth the upgrade just yet. Off the bat, a few things are noticeable. The OLED screen looks great and does better with content with dark backgrounds because there's no backlight blooming like I see on my M1 iPad Pro's mini LED display. If you're coming from an even older iPad with the older IPS display, this would be a significant difference. So black backgrounds look black, but the screen still gets crazy bright with that tandem OLED display. And the iPad Pros did get slimmer and lighter last year, and having it side by side with my older M1 iPad Pro, the slimness is noticeable, but the biggest difference is its lightness. It's not shockingly lighter, if that makes sense, especially once you slap the Magic Keyboard on the iPads, but I would obviously much prefer the M5 iPad's lighter weight though. The front-facing camera is in landscape mode now instead of portrait mode, but honestly, the older screen and camera orientation wasn't that bad to live with either. To this day, they're fine. Where you'd notice the biggest difference between the M5 and the older ones is those weight savings and what's in its name, the M5 chip. The speed difference is noticeable. My M1 iPad Pro has some slight stutters from time to time where things get slightly laggy, but for the most part runs 95% of things with no issues. It wasn't always this way. It used to do everything without a hitch. What this does mean is that the OS has been getting beefier and beefier over the last 4 years. I haven't really encountered anything much that makes the M5 iPad Pro struggle, but honestly, they're so similar in everyday tasks, and if you just showed me both, I'd be perfectly happy with either, which kind of goes to show you how well older iPads are holding up. If you have any of the M series iPads, you're probably good. No need to upgrade. But that also made me think, then when is the best time to upgrade your iPad? We're hitting diminishing returns big time. You can see this all the way from phones, laptops, TVs, and tablets. I feel like we've hit a point where things that are just a few years old are still great for most people. So while I do think that the M5 is the best iPad Apple currently sells, I don't suggest just renting it out and getting it. This is a freaking $1,000 or $1,300 tablet, because if you think your iPad is still good enough, it probably is. Apple also offers a $120 battery replacement for older iPads, which could make your older iPad feel basically like new again without ever breaking the bank. This is a great way to get a few extra years out of your iPad. Since Apple changed the accessories for the iPad Pro with the M4, they introduced a new Magic Keyboard and Apple Pencil. So if you buy first-party accessories, that's an additional cost to keep in mind since you'd have to replace your current accessories since the M5 and M4 iPad Pros only use these new accessories. Apple is also still providing software updates to iPad Pros released all the way back in 2017. So if you ask me how long you should wait to update your iPad to the M5 iPad Pro, it kind of boils down to, does it still run all your apps just fine? Does it still support the latest OS updates? Does it have all the features you need? So if you ask yourself these questions and answered yes to all of them, save yourself some money, get a battery replacement, and continue using your iPad for another 2 or so years. Because honestly, your current one really can just keep going. I don't think I'd be upgrading if I wasn't making YouTube content. My M1 iPad Pro was serving me just fine. All right, that's cool. That's for existing iPad owners. What about someone trying to buy a new iPad today? how does the iPad Pro compare to other iPads in Apple's lineup, mainly the iPad Air and even refurbished options? If we're talking about just pure usability and value, I think the iPad Air is a better value and can be just as good as the Pro for productivity for quite a bit cheaper too. So if you're more value oriented, get the Air. The main benefits of the Pro that you will see compared to the Air in day-to-day usage is the display, Face ID, because that's just plain quicker, and better speakers, making the Pro an amazing content consumption machine, and one that will just last you about 2 years longer with just the newer M5 chip alone. So if those are the type of things you plan to do a lot with on the Pro, I think that's the better choice. Another option is to purchase a refurbished iPad. In the past, I could find some pretty good deals on Apple's refurbished store, but lately that seems to not be the case. So if you're looking at refurbished, it might be better to look outside of Apple for now. But just keep in mind, one refurbisher might do things slightly different than another, and do your research to find the best deals for yourself. So at this point, I think it's conclusion time. The M5 iPad Pro is a minor refresh. It's the best version of the iPad Pro yet, but unless your iPad is an Air or a Pro that's 4 years or older, you won't notice much of a difference upgrading. I'd highly suggest only looking at this as an upgrade if you held out that long. But besides that, there's not much else to say about this besides the fact that it's a great iPad. It's their best iPad, and if it continues to follow the current trend of these iPads, it'll last you most of the decade. I think the most exciting part about iPads these days is not the physical iPad itself, but the software features that they've been cramming into it that makes them more and more useful every year as laptop alternatives. Apple has completely overhauled them with iPad OS 26. But I think that's a completely different discussion for a completely different video. But anyway, what do you personally think? Does upgrading to the M5 iPad Pro make sense for you? Were there any features that you thought that it should have had to begin with? When is the right time to upgrade your iPad? I think people's feelings have become kind of mixed on the iPad. Some absolutely love it and it becomes an indispensable part of their everyday life. And other people are like, how would you even need it? But I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave all that down in the comment section below, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.